Hi everyone, it's Intern Moonie here to teach you guys how to crochet this evening. Um, I'll start off by saying that I by no means am a pro of any sorts. I just learned from my mother-in-law how to do it. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna teach you guys the basics of how to crochet. After this, if you have any further questions, my Instagram is linked below in the description. So you can always feel free to reach out to me there, and I'd love to answer any questions that you have. So for starters, I'm going to go over what came in the kits this evening from student involvement. So we are learning with the crochet hook 4.5 millimeters. It's just a good size to learn with. It's not too big and bulky to try and handle, but it's also not too teeny tiny to the point that you're making like doilies. This also creates a really good standard size. This generally can be used for like tighter knit washcloths and such. The bigger the size, the bigger that the hole can be. Also, the bigger your yarn. So you wouldn't want to use this to make like a big puffy blanket. Um, but you, once again, don't want to use this to make something gentle and delicate like doilies. So that is the hook size we're using. And then you also should have multiple little skeins of yarn. So we're using the Mirror brand. If you like this, you can always get it on Amazon. They come in big packs of these little sizes. And then somewhere on here, here it is. So first off, it tells you what kind it is. So I'm going to be showing different ways that you can use these. When you're using acrylic yarn, though, you don't want to use this kind for like washcloths or any sort of like face or personal products because acrylic just isn't great on the skin. But you can use acrylic for things like blankets, rags, that sort of thing. Just nothing like personal face use. It also tells you care instructions for it here. And then because we're crocheting tonight, we're going to be looking for this little crochet hook symbol. So the recommended size for it is 4.5 to 5.5 millimeters. We're using the 4.5, so we're going to have a like tighter knit to it. That also depends on how hard you pull it when you're knitting it or crocheting it. Sorry, but same thing. Um, I am also going to show some examples of things that I have worked on. So currently I'm working on a blanket right now. So this is with like a chunkier knit. The hook that I use for it is pretty big. And it still is a very tight knit. So you can't see my finger or my skin at all through it. I also have a tighter knit scarf. So you can see my skin through it still. This makes it nice and breathable. So when you have it up around your face, at least you can still breathe, but it's keeping out the cold. This is done with a size slightly bigger than the 4.5. And then I also make these little crochet rounds. These are made with 100% cotton. So if you use any sort of yarn that is 100% cotton, you can use that on your face. I make these to order for people for, nail polish remover, makeup remover, washing your face, anything like that. So, what I am going to start with, though, is showing everyone here how to make a chain. So a chain is essentially just a bunch of little knits and little loops. Like I said, not a professional, don't know all the professional terms. But it's a bunch of little stitches that you put together to make a chain, which is your base that you start with. So what you want to start with is you want to get a good chunk of yarn out here. I don't like to fully unravel mine or turn it into a ball because otherwise my cats will chase it around the house. So I just kind of keep it in the little cake that it's rolled into. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to roll it over my finger like this. And then I'm going to take, I've got this loop here. I'm going to do my best to hold on to it. And then I'm going to take this and push it up through the loop. So you can hold on to that. And in your dominant hand, you want to hold on to these two. So if you're left-handed like that, if you're right-handed, hold on to it like this. And you just want to hold on to those. And pull on this part. Keep this steady. Pull on this so that you make this little chain. And then I grab onto the knot. And I pull on the smaller tail just a little bit. Just to tighten it. But then the part that's connected to the rest of your yarn, you want to grab that. Hold the knot. And pull on that. Don't pull this too tight, otherwise you're going to lock this knot in place and never be able to change the size of this, and you need to change the size of this loop. Next, you'll grab your hook. I do apologize, I am left-handed. I know that is not the popular, but I will also show a few right-handed. So you'll put it on here. You just want to cinch it on. You don't want it super tight, so you can see I can still really easily move this around. This part of the hook here is where you place your hand. As you go, you'll also kind of figure out what you like. I know people that hold it up even higher. I really never seen anyone hold it like this, but generally you hold it about here. Your thumb rests pretty perfectly there, whichever hand you use dominantly. And then what you do is you have your knot facing down towards the floor. So you can see my little tail hanging down here. You take the yarn, and how I generally do it is I put it over my 3 fingers like this, and then you can pinch it however you really want to. I see people do it like this. I generally hold it with my thumb. So what you do is you hold your hook steady, and you wrap the yarn once around it, and then I'm reaching my fingers down on the underside here, so this is what the underside looks like. So you have your yarn wrapped around. I'm grabbing the knot. The knot is the easiest thing to grab, so that way you're not pulling on the tail and over tightening it or anything. And you just slide them towards the end until the part that you wrapped over locks under the hook there, if you can kind of see that. And then you take this part, and the reason why you leave this loose is so that it's easy just to pull up and over. Now, I have my first stitch here. If I pull it like this will be huge, and then I have to work with a really loose size, so I keep it loose and mobile, just like this for the first one, because if you keep it too tight on your first chain, it's going to be really hard to start, and you're going to be pushing, and it's going to hurt your thumbs. So I do not recommend that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a chain of 5. So that first one was 1. Your knot doesn't count as 1, I will say that. So first one, second, third, and as it gets bigger, you can just hold on to this here. Fourth, and one more time. So fifth. So now you've got this. I'm just going to go ahead and drop my yarn there so you can see this. And what we're going to want to do now is you're going to want to grab it, and you take the hook into, you can either go right into this first loop, or you can go into this second loop. I like to go into the first loop. That's how I get my really even straight sides on my scarf. So just an example of kind of what that looks like is you get these really straight, even ends. So when I was making this, you can actually see the loop that's come undone a bit. This is the part where I would be going across with my hook. This is the length of it. So this is how many rows I have done of this chain. So, got it all tangled up here. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go ahead and kind of pull this a bit so I can see where my chain's set at. And you're looking for that loop. So I'm going to go ahead and maybe stick it in there. There we go. So push it on. So it looks like this now. So you're going to have all of your extra chains that you made hanging off to the side. Now you've got these 2 loops here. And what you do is you cross over and you pull only this first part. So now you've got these 2, and it's all sticking on, and it should look like this. Then you wrap over again, and you lift up. So what I do is I pull on it. You don't want to pull too hard so you don't stretch your yarn, but you just take it, pull it up a bit, so that way the hook can easily slide over, and now you've started your second row. So you don't want to go into this first hole, because what we're working on right now is a single stitch chain. If you go into this first hole, that will make it a double, and that's going to make it kind of bulkier. That's also when you start getting into making circles. So, show you again. So I go past that big loop, so I can tell that's where I just was. So I'm going to go into the next section, pull it through, chain over once, and chain over twice. And now you can see I have 2 kind of bigger loops, and this is the reason why I leave it bigger, is just so it's kind of easier to see and to work with. And over once, over twice. And I'm going to do it again. So, over once. And over twice. And then one last time, so it kind of looks like you're just going to go into that knot there, and it looks like you're going down almost. So if I were to turn around right now and just flip it over and start going again, I would drop a stitch, which means that I would go from the beautiful 5 I made at the bottom down to 4, and you're going to see that as you go. It would just like shrink in a bit. You also want to make sure you don't go too far or stitch into something extra, because otherwise you're going to add a stitch and then you're going to start to go out. And if that happens, that's okay. I can show you how to fix that. This last one's always a little weird because it kind of sticks. So now I have my second row done. And then that's the difference when you start moving on past the second row is you flip it. So I'd go all the way across here, then flip again, go all the way across here. So let's say I'm just going to do this and add on a stitch. Oh no, I have this extra stitch here. It looks longer than the rest. What I would do is I take my hook out, set it off to the side, and just pull. And there we go. Now I'm back to my 5. And I can just put my hook back in. And back to normal. That's the great thing about crocheting, is that at the end of the day, if you think you messed up somewhere, or it just doesn't look right, it's just a bunch of chains. See? No knot. All the way back to normal. So that is how you do a single chain just for squares, rectangles, that sort of thing. You can make triangles by doing that, which is adding or losing stitches. I used to accidentally make triangles all the time. Definitely not on purpose. So we've got that. So then the next thing I'm going to show is how to do a circle. So I like to leave a longer tail on my circles. It's generally good to leave a long tail, just in case, you know, you accidentally snag on something, and you got to weave back in. So I'm going to go ahead and make my same loop again, pull on it, and then when you make a circle, you do 1, 2, 3, 4. So I made 4. And then you're going to hold it out like this, and you can honestly just drop your string for now so you can focus on this part. So you're going to want to look for your first chain, so I can see it's all the way in here, or you can even count back. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Go into the 4th one. So it's going to sit on like this. What it looks like on the underside is this. So it's like all your stitches are sticking to your hook. Your tail's out front there. And not your tail, you want the part that is attached to your skein. You drop the tail. You take this and you just pull both loops over. So now you've got this little circle. What you do then is you go into the center of the circle. Make sure you're not going into one of the stitches or anything, or like this out here. That's not the circle, that's the string holding it all together. So you go into the center circle. You can also just kind of like push it against your finger and push it outwards. Go into the center circle, and you're going to do this 6 times. So that's 1 and 2, 3, 4. And so instead, when you're putting it in, you're looping over like you did with the single stitch, and you're grabbing this huge chunk, which is your circle. You pull that over once, so then you have 2 loops again, and here you go. Let me just do this. So that's 6. And so from here on out now, what you're gonna do, you can also, if you want to, you can pull on the tail a little bit so that tightens it. Looks a little more circle-esque. Is I like to kind of push it out like this so I can see, it looks, for me, when I look at it, it looks like a flower. Kind of makes it the easiest, and you want to find these outer little petals. So on the side, what that looks more like is you can see these 2 stitches here. Now put your hook. Sometimes it's kind of easier to get in there, one and then the other. Put them in like that. So it's going to look like you have 3 stitches on here. There you go. 1, 2. And then you're going to find that hole again. So you're going to want to kind of pull it open and C, and it's going to be really close to where you just stitched. So you want to go right back into it, and sometimes it will get stuck. There you go. And then you'll go around for all 6 of them and just do 2 stitches. And then when you do your next row, you'll do 2, 1, 2, 1, and that will start to eventually make this pattern, making this kind of circle pattern. You can always, if you don't have little markers, there's like plastic little markers that you can get to stick in, and it looks like a little loop that hangs off. If you can't tell where your marker is, what I do is, because sometimes markers can be a hassle, is, I'm just going to take this off my hook quick, is I'll have my little flower, my little circle. If you flip it over, you can see where your tail is. So you can see now, this is where my loop is. So I would continue around this way. So when I see that I am about to hit right in front of my tail there, then I know my next one is when I'm going to change my pattern. I will also link what the circle pattern is below, because when you go around, eventually then when you go to your next row, you'll do 2, 1, 1, 2. And so I will link that on how you make a full-blown circle. Circles are definitely a little harder to do, but they're how you can make different things like stuffed animals, how you can make, once again, like the washcloths. You can even make little bowls if you do it tight enough. And just kind of experiment around with it. Definitely the rectangle is kind of the way to go. And I mean, that's just really your foundational. It's just to learn that until you feel super comfortable, and then you can move on to things like circles. And real quick, I'm just going to not do that, because I'm just going to throw together a quick little chain and show 2 things. So, or I can just mess up my chain. So basically, what you have here is you just go back in, and I'm going to do my second row so I can show you guys 2 quick things. This is definitely a much more messy one. That's okay. So I have this done. So let's say you're going through, you have quite a few, and you're like, oh man, I'm either getting to the end of this, I don't have any more, or I have more, and I want to include more of this color, or, I want to make, even more colors. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the part that's connected to the skein, you're going to hold it out, grab a pair of scissors, and you're going to want to cut it, give yourself a few inches, just snip it. So now you're left with this. You're like, oh, okay, well, what do I do now? Do I tie them together? No, you don't want to tie them together. You don't tie any knots, actually, when you crochet, because at the end, you'll just weave these back in. So you'll just weave it in and out with your hook. You can kind of just push your hook through and pull the yarn back through. So what you can do now is go ahead and grab some more yarn, whatever color you want to do. I'm going to switch to this nice dark blue. And I am going to make my loop as if I am starting a whole new thing, because you technically are. And I'm going to put it on here like this, and then make a little chain and pull both of those through. And I just like to tighten that one on the outside, because you can always trim that or weave it back down later. And then you just keep going as if it's a whole new row. It's definitely harder to see with the smaller chain. Yeah, so now that you've done this, you can just go through and change colors whenever you feel like it. Patterns will specifically call for, when to change colors and different rows and stuff. Um, but if you're just trying to do a straight blanket, this is just how you can go about doing it. You can kind of see, you can see where the loop is there. Yeah, so you would just keep going like that. And then the last thing that I want to show is, let's say I'm done. This is where I'm gonna finish it off here. So what you're gonna do is, generally you do it before you snip, but you're gonna, at the end of your row, you're gonna weave your yarn over as if you are making another chain. This is why generally you don't snip it first, but so you just made that extra loop, and you pull it through, and you tighten it down nice and tight. So now this is not going anywhere. You can't pull this apart. And then, now you're sitting here. What do I do with the rest of these? Well, you can push your hook back through. And what I do is I like to wrap it around. If you don't have like a little needle or anything, I just pull it through my hook, and my hook will get stuck. And then you just pull it through, and you want to weave it in for a few of these, just so it's nice and secured in there, and then you can just give it a little snip, and it'll be buried inside of there. Now you can't see it. So that is just the basics to crocheting. If the circle is something where you're like, man, I'm still struggling on the rectangle, you can go ahead and skip the circle for now and just learn how to do these. If you're a TikTok user, you can look all over TikTok for amazing patterns and designs that people have done, and learn how people do granny squares, which is essentially just these little squares with designs that you can all put together. This blanket that I'm working on, for example, is very long, and so instead of switching my colors partway, what I do is I just stitch them together. So they're stitched together like this, and then as more weight is added to the blanket, this flattens out. And so that's another way that you can do it too. So if you just want to make rows and then just stitch them all together, that's a totally valid way to do it as well. Like I said, I will link my Instagram in the bio here, and if you have any questions, please feel free to DM me. And I'm super excited to see what you guys make. Send them to the Student Involvement Instagram so we can see all the things that you guys have made tonight on Maker's Night. And I hope you guys have a fantastic evening. Thanks.